Hello.
Good afternoon. Hello. Let's see. Let me let others in. We've got more animation in store today. One of my favorite subjects. Let me let everybody in now. Thanks for being patient. As soon as I get comfortable, the bell rings again. All right, we're gonna get started anyway. Small crowd today. Oh, here we go. So let me just let Kalik in and then we'll get started. So I do want to, let me ask you guys something right off the bat. On today's handout, I'd put a new link for the meetings and the old link. Did the new link work? It did work. That's great. I have no idea exactly what happened, but boy, did I learn a lot about Zoom from investigating. So anyway, I'm glad everybody made it today. This should be our link for the rest of the semester. I looked over every handout actually, just to see what happened and when, and then I don't understand. But anyway, it's behind us. So here we are now. Still letting people in. I think what wound up happening was some people found their own way to get to the meetings other than the link on the handout. If a bunch of you were having troubles with the handout, I kind of wish people let me know sooner. Chris mentioned that he'd had a different route. I remember you saying he was doing it through Blackboard somehow, and I thought, oh, gee, why bother? Could have just been that I was giving you the wrong link. I don't know. But in any case, it's all fixed for the rest of the semester. All right, everybody's here. Let me get right to the handout. It helps me stay structured, and then we're going to move into the new material. Okay, just a couple things. I know that some of you have been making use of the YouTube links. I'm pleased about that because it really does take extra effort to do it. I think by and large, those that are here all the time whose schedules allow that probably don't go there often. But anyway, the link's still live. All the last class is up too. Officially, last Thursday's video is due tonight. And, I've been a little less than strict about those deadlines. I'm usually very uptight about it. Let me just make sure nobody's waiting. All right, looks like we're good. I'm usually very uptight about it, but this has been a weird semester, obviously being the weirdest year in all of human history, perhaps. So I'm flexible, right? Tonight is the deadline though. I would say half the class has already done it and you've already been graded. So I would like to say all the work that I've received has been graded. And if you haven't visited Blackboard recently, you should really do it right away so that you're very clear on where you stand. Just letting someone else in. I do want to say something though. A number of people had issues getting a computer suitable for this strange semester, this remote class. And I'm cutting people a lot of slack on those, especially those of you who've been in touch with me, regularly. One or two of you told me that the midterm was coming and I didn't receive it. So you should take a look at Blackboard and see. If you think you handed something in and there's a 0 there, it means I didn't get it, right? So take action though. I'm on your side. I'm flexible and kind of easygoing as long as you take action. People who ignore their own grades and come to me week 4, the end of the class, I'm not going to be as open-minded, right? So be sure if you haven't visited recently, visit Blackboard today, right? Send me a thoughtful email, anything that you want to know about, right? Guys, can I remind everyone about this email address? I had a student who kept sending email to the wrong address and got into real trouble. So I just want to be really clear. This is by far the best email address for you to use, and I'm circling at the top of the handout. This way you're not mixed in with a flood of CUNY emails that I get daily. There's no chance of me missing it. Honestly, I can't check every day as it is, But when I do reserve time to check your class, I go right there. Just to be thorough, I do check the school's email, right? Like I'm sure you do, don't you? But how often do you do it? So you probably know what I'm talking about. This is our hotline. If you need me, because a grade, you know you handed me something and showing up as 0, send me an email. I'll tell you what to do about it, okay? All right.
Professor,
Yes,
may I talk to you after class?
absolutely.
Thank
Absolutely,
you.
Evelyn. By all means. If I forget, just remind me. I have a short-term memory, but that's not a problem.
Okay.
It's no problem at all. All right. Okay. So guys, really take advantage of my open mind, right? If you're here all the time, you're a little bit behind on homework. There's been very few homeworks, you know, so it's rather alarming if anyone is substantially behind. And there's going to be one more this semester. All right, enough of that. All right, so it looks like everybody used the new link today. All right, I'm going to remove these next 2 lines from here on. That's our new link. It's not the one we started the semester with to get to Zoom. All right, we're using Adobe Animate. I imagine that everybody was here last Thursday, and that if you weren't, you watched last class. That's the deal that we have going this semester. So I am going to do review, but when I review stuff like this, I always add, you know, to keep people alert moving forward. You know, let's be clear. Those of you who are good learners, you know, that's not everybody. You know, sometimes a good learner, I'm saying not student, by the way, because a good student is usually a good learner everywhere in life. They just know what it takes to learn. So good learners know that redundance is part of learning. I don't think any of your favorite athletes, if you're into sports, was able to score goals after playing one day. You know, so redundance is absolutely urgent. And that just means repetition. They say practice makes perfect. That may not be true, but practice makes much better. Yeah, that's pretty obviously true. All right. So I'm just going to dive right in, right? So I'm going to ask everybody to open Animate. Again, if anyone's still having problems getting it open, you should reach out to me. Email's best because I don't know how much I could help during the class, but you should observe as closely as you can. And remember, whenever you can't do that, please go to the YouTube link, which has been on every single handout. And it lists every class you've had with me. All right, let's jump right into Animate. You know, I probably should say just a couple words about opening Animate. It just, by the way, if you're opening Animate and it asks you for a font, you could just skip it. I don't know, it has some issue with this one font. For the record, though, you know, your group particularly has got a lot of exposure. This is the only class where, you know, we keep dipping into these different elements of multimedia design. And this is our 3rd Adobe program. So I think by now people are probably kind of used to Creative Cloud and what it is. You know, I just want to say real quickly, I don't know anybody who's an expert on Creative Cloud. Creative Cloud is like a library card, but it's not the books. You know, they're Photoshop experts, Animate experts, Premiere experts. I don't want to leave out Illustrator and many other programs. Creative Cloud is just a way to get around. So most people figure out how to get around on their own computer and just totally forget that Creative Cloud's not just the collection of programs, the suite, but it's an app. So if you ever get lost, just search your computer for Creative Cloud. The app will show up and just run the app. From there, you could open any of the programs that come with it. Just letting somebody in. All right. All right. Anyway, here I am in Animate. One thing I say in all of Adobe's programs and most other programs is I don't usually use this page, right? This special kind of opening page. Some people turn it off, in fact. So I usually go to the File menu and create New. I'm going to do that again. So with Animate open, let's go to the File menu and choose New. There is nothing wrong, by the way, if you prefer to use these features. What I'm doing is about the same as clicking this. And the only reason I don't is I want people to get really used to the File menu. You know, if you choose to learn more Adobe programs, there's a lot of repeat stuff. And the File menu is a reliable element. File menu, New. All right, when you're in Animate, there's one decision you make right away. Am I working on something new? Or am I working on something old? If it's something new, yeah, File menu New, like we just did. If you're working on something old, File menu Open, and you go find that file. Here we are in File menu New, and you'll notice there's some default sizes available, right? I want to use this one that's called Standard. So I want to say very quickly, there is no standard. You know, this is misnamed. You know, this is surely a little tall, a little small for television, for a TV set, but it's a nice size to fit on a website. And that size happens to be 640 by 480. I know we only met this program last week for the first time, so let me just repeat something urgent. Adobe Animate only thinks in pixels. I said the same thing when we were in Premiere. Adobe Premiere also only thinks in pixels. Those programs don't even know what an inch is, you know, because there are no inches on your screen. It's all dominated by the way the screen is set. So we think in pixels. 640 by 480. I would like you to check the frame rate. Now, last week, we actually got pretty darn busy, right? We're going to do the same today. I just want to say something based on what we did last week. The frame rate means how many frames does that playhead pass in a second. So second is the measurement. This here means that there'll be 24 frames in a second. And if a person was drawing absolutely everything and they wanted it to be as smooth as possible, so there's not an instant without a drawing, they would have to do 24 drawings per second, right? Which is a hell of a lot of drawings. So 10 seconds, 240, you're well over 1,200 drawings for just a minute. By the way, the slowest frame rate that looks believable to the human eye, at least in my generation, we started at 12. When I was young, we were using 12 frames per second, and it didn't look great, but it was good for the internet, because your internet stream, you know, your connection couldn't handle more than 12 drawings coming in per second. So we worked with that minimum number. Now it can handle 24. And by the way, I don't even believe in higher numbers. A lot of people use 30, which is also good. I'm pushing 24. Those are the two most common speeds. 24. Let's just click create. Just want to make sure. Some people seem to be getting bumped out because I noticed people are logging in and then 5 minutes later they're back in the waiting room. No fault of your own, right? It means it's probably a lousy internet connection. So forgive me if I stop now and then. Folks, if you did arrive late, open Animate, open up a file. The size isn't even critical. Just open something up, right? I do want a frame rate of 24. That is more important. Okay. I want to start by talking about drawing together a little review. So can everybody join me in this? I want you to go to the left side of the screen and grab the rectangle tool. And I want you then to notice something. At the bottom of the toolbar, you'll see a fill box and a stroke box. And I'm trying to point it out, the very bottom of those toolbar. The top one called the fill box is the inside color. We're about to draw rectangles, so the inside of the rectangle. The one behind it is the outline color. Could you go ahead and draw yourself a rectangle? Now, you can see mine has no outline color because I had no stroke. If you want to change for the next rectangle, go to the fill box, again, the bottom of the toolbar. People are coming and going today. There must be a bad internet connection day. So again, anybody who just arrived, just open up Animate. I do want a 24 per second frame rate. So when you choose a document, put 24 under frame rate. All right, so it goes. All right, so to prepare for the next rectangle, right? We chose the rectangle tool. We're going down to the bottom. You click in that fill box to choose a different color. But this time I want to make sure I have a stroke. So I'm going to click on the box behind it. You know, it looks like a picture frame, and many programs share this arrangement. That's the stroke box. And when I click it, it comes to the front, which means all my choices are going to be about the stroke as soon as I click it. Give me a second. I really don't know what's going on today that people are coming and going. All right. So I click the fill to choose a fill color. I click the stroke box, which brings it to the front to choose a stroke color. And then you go ahead and draw a new rectangle. I would like to say something quick to any of you guys who use Adobe Illustrator. The drawing tools are very similar, but not the same. It is quite an advantage to know them both, but here's the one main difference. In Illustrator, if you choose colors and draw something, you still, that object is still selected. So if you change colors, you're going to keep on changing the color of the same object. In Animate, as soon as you draw an object, it's not selected anymore. So you could go change colors as often as you want, and it won't affect the current object. In Illustrator, the last object would be selected, so I'd be changing its color now. But here I'm not. I'm just preparing a new one. All right, I want to draw your attention to something kind of small. You know, I don't really want to work with strokes a lot with you guys this semester because it confuses things, right? But I don't want to leave them out. So I want to say a couple quick things about stroke. That's the outline color. It's the common term for outline colors in all graphics, illustration, and motion arts. So you could tell my first box here doesn't have an outline, no stroke. The other three do. So what I'd like for you to do is this. Make sure you're in the rectangle tool. So if you just arrived, you want to get to the rectangle tool. And then on the right side, I want to show you something. This is also the fill color. It's also the stroke color. So sometimes you'll prefer to choose colors from here, sometimes from the bottom of the toolbar. Doesn't really matter which. But this area on the right has lots of cool stuff to go with it, like this. I'd like you to take that stroke weight slider and move it over till you hit about 5, and then draw a new rectangle. So you can see this palette on the right's got more power. It's letting me change the size of my stroke as often as I want. And I could change this without any effect on what's already on the screen. All right. So why don't I use strokes that much? Don't I like lines? Yeah, I love lines. You know, but I have two arguments with the overuse of strokes. One of them is it's hard to use combining shapes to build with. Remember the city we made last Thursday? Right, that was called merge mode. That wouldn't have worked if we'd had strokes on. The strokes behave like walls, so those things would not have merged. I couldn't have made those cool shapes. So that's one reason why I often don't use them. The other reason is I love color, and people who love color want to show off what they know about how colors relate. And colors don't relate the same if they're all surrounded by outlines. You know, so you'll never see a good painter work with outlines. I can't hardly think of even one, you know, unless they're really about line. You know, so you're not going to see it in a Michelangelo. You're not going to see it in a Van Gogh. You'll see it in the drawings, but not the paintings. All right. I would like to back up a little bit. You know what? I'm going to do something nice since we didn't do anything that we need here for anyone who's come late. Boy, Chris is really, this is the third time he's logged in. He must have a very rough internet connection going. All right. Guys, can everybody open a new document? File menu, new. I'm going to delay for 1 second. Folks, listen, I know it's not cool if I review too much. Really not fair to those of you who got it happening. We could give a little bit of slack, okay? Because it's nobody's fault when their internet is backing up completely. So I'm delaying just a tiny little bit. All right, doesn't look like he's getting in, so I'm going to do this. If you just arrived with me, in Animate, I want you to open a new document. 640 wide, so that's file menu new, same in every program. 640 wide, 480 tall, but this is the important part, frame rate of 24. And let's click create. All right, I want you to get the rectangle tool again, but this time I want you to do it a little differently. You already know that you could choose the fill and the stroke from the right. This is called the properties palette, the most powerful palette in the program. But you also know you could pick your fill and stroke color from the bottom of the toolbar. So the choice is yours. But what I'd like for you to do is this. I want you to click on the stroke color and notice this way over here. So it doesn't matter which stroke box you click. But way over here is color of none. And in this program, to draw without a stroke, you have to choose color of none. So these are all colors. But way over here, it says color of none. So you get that stroke. People always forget that it's here because it's in a dumb place. It should be here with the other swatches. All right. If you want to change your fill, you just go right ahead. So here's my idea. I want you to draw something and be sure that there's no stroke on it. And the main reason is we get to do cool stuff like this. So can you make yourself a quick letter H? I am assuming that whoever was not here last Thursday watched the video, which is, as I said, that's the deal that we have, right? So you know that if those shapes overlap in an uninterrupted way, no stroke in the way, right? You should be able to get the black arrow, click it, change the color at once, move it, and do some other cool stuff, which I want to talk about in a moment. All right. I want to back up and say something specifically to the animation majors, people in here that are heading that way. All right. This program has two different ways to draw. We're focusing on merge mode because it's cool, it's unusual, helps us do some fast drawing. But there's also object mode. Hey, Brandon, I have a question for you specifically. Did you mention that you're an animation major? Am I imagining that?
No, I don't think so. I'm in VAT.
You would know.
You get the colors.
It could have been in a different class. If you don't know, no. The only reason I bring that up is if you happen to be an animation major and you also are an Illustrator user, please let me know. Because I would like to squeeze in a couple things just for you that wouldn't be otherwise relevant.
Oh, I think last class I said I worked with Illustrator, but not with animation specifically.
That's where I got confused. So Brandon, let me show you something, right? And listen, folks, take this with a big spoon of sugar. I don't want to confuse anybody, right? There's one thing I don't like that I have to show you. Could you just watch this the first time? So the object you just made, this letter H, was made with merge mode. But watch what happens if I make one small change. This is the rectangle tool again, but at the very bottom of the toolbar is a weird little feature, right? It's got a circle and a square. And that same feature shows up way over here on the properties palette on the right. I want to show this to you on the properties palette. Watch, just take a look. Can you all draw your attention to the right side here? I'm circling this element. When I click it, it goes a little darker gray, right? And that is called object drawing mode. In this class, we're never going to click it. So it's going to be a little lighter, right? And that's merge mode. So you have that set to lighter, right? So your shapes are merging, right? That's one shape now. But if I got that tool and I pressed that button so it was darker, this is the worst interface design. It's way too subtle, right? But if it gets a little dark, I'm in object mode, and this is the difference. Looks the same. But when I go get the black arrow, look what happens. There's still three separate objects. So it's called object drawing mode. Brandon, that's like Illustrator, right?
Yeah.
Right. So Illustrator makes everything non-destructive, right? If you wanted things to merge, you have to take extra steps. In this program, I'm not going to do that. I only mention it for anybody who's into Illustrator that might be confused by this difference. All right.
Professor?
So I'm going to ask everyone to select all. That's Command A. Press Delete to clear that screen.
How did you merge it?
And I'm going to go over that right now because I want to be very clear, right? So you get the rectangle tool and you double check with me, right, that this button down here is light. So it's here on the right, that's not down. It's the same button down here. It's just harder to see at the bottom of the toolbar. I really think this utterly sucks. There should be two different buttons for this, right? So I'm in merge mode now, right? It's easier to see it on the properties palette. It's a little lighter. And here's the steps. When you're in, so by the way, guys, for those of you like drawing this program already, when you choose a mode, you stay in that mode until you change. It's not specific to the tool. So if you click that, all the tools are going to refuse to merge, or they're all going to merge. So I'm going to stick with merge mode, which is the default, the way this program comes when you get it. All right, so to go over that, you get the rectangle tool. You check that this button here on the right side, that's the properties palette, is light, not dark, light. You might have to click it to see the difference. Subtle, light. Then you pick a fill color. But the critical thing is make sure that you don't have a stroke, right? So it sounds like health advice. If you click on this chip, make sure you don't have a color in there. You have to choose this one, this tiny little slash mark. All right. Listen, I think I want to have a little bit of fun and redo the city. I want to mention some things that I didn't mention last week. We did make a little silhouette of a city last week. I want to throw in some details and field any questions you might have. Really, frankly, I want to get to motion today, so I'm going to kind of speed it up a little bit. So you got the rectangle tool, you checked your fill, you checked your stroke, you checked that the object button is not gray, dark, it's released. All right, so you may remember this, and you could join me at any point that you're starting to feel comfortable with it. If I wanted to make a distance city, I might just choose to merge shapes to make silhouettes of buildings. So there's a building made out of 3 rectangles, right? Nearby it, for variety's sake, I'm going to try other shapes, and I'm kind of just sort of imagining buildings as I go. So, you know, free out a little bit as long as they overlap. Those are going to be single shapes later. And this is one of the cool things about merge mode, right? I'm really getting a lot of mileage out of merge mode right now. And it's okay if you go a little off screen. That's fine. All right. What else can you do though? So the black arrow will let you actually alter the shapes regardless of which mode we happen to choose, right? We're merging because I want the freedom to be able to click a building with the black arrow and treat it as one shape. You know, if I wanted to change that color, I could. And if you feel like trying it, go ahead, click one of them, give it a new fill. The other thing that I like about it, though, is all the places that have merged have new little anchor points. I wanted you to peek at this with me, but I got a better way for you to do it. I just want to show you something.
Mine isn't doing that.
Diamond, yours are not merging? Okay.
It merged, but when I tried to click on it to change like the entire building, it only did individuals.
All right, so then you weren't in merge mode, right? So I would suggest you clear the screen, you know, Command A and press delete, right? Get the rectangle tool. Now, if when you get the rectangle tool, you don't look at this really closely, and frankly, it does take some getting used to. I keep complaining about it. Just don't like the way that button looks, right? This is what it looks like dark. Can you make out the difference? Slightly darker?
I have dark mode and it's a bit hard to...
That's not what you want, right? You want it to be lighter. If it's lighter, your shapes will merge,
Okay.
meaning that you click on it, you do get the entire shape like that. Is it working now?
Okay, it worked. Thank you.
You're welcome. Don't feel bad about that, Diamond. I can't tell you how many times I went through that. You know, I don't think this feature always existed in the history of this program, but it's incredibly cool. Just a lame looking button. You know, and the weird part is it says object on it no matter what state it's in. So it's very confusing. All right, I'm glad it's working now. All right, let me just delete this one. And I'm so glad you asked. I always get the feeling people have important questions and they're just not asking. So I really appreciate it. Okay, give me a second there. Just want to make sure I'm taking attendance. Okay. what about the black arrow then? Could everyone reach for the, actually, give me a second. I was in the middle of showing you something. I just want to give you a peek. I don't know if you guys can make it out because it's so small, but every corner that I'm showing you here has a little white dot that's called an anchor point. Now we're going to move those, but we're going to use it with the black arrow, and the black arrow won't show them to you, but it lets you use them. So let me switch to the black arrow. I'm going to back up a little bit. All right, here's some things you could do with the black arrow. If you select an object, all you could do is change its color, move it, or delete it. All right, that you already know. But if you deselect, that means click off, you could grab any corner and move that corner. So I don't know, some buildings have slanted roofs. I'm going to take advantage of that, make that look a little bit more interesting. Kind of like it, right? And maybe you want to go for something fancy, you know, stranger architecture. Starting to see a lot of stuff, weirder looking shapes in the city these days. So you can grab any corner and move it. That's because there's anchors there. After you merged your shapes, it created anchors where it needed it, basically for corners. But that's not all, right? So I want to show you this other thing. If you go to a straight line, so that's not a corner, straight line, you'll see you get a curved cursor, right? This symbol there, right? If you accidentally click inside, that won't happen. Just click out and then sneak up on one of these edges, and you could pull it up to see what it does. So it's creating kind of dome shape, you know, which is pretty darn interesting. So you have a bunch of choices, which I kind of like. I don't know of any buildings that look like this, but it'd be pretty much fun if I was drawing a rocket ship. So I'm going to back off of that. Guys, I know some people have had a very hard time logging in today, so I keep checking to see if everyone finally made it. All right, great.
Oh yeah, I apologize for that.
Yeah, I know, Chris. I saw you were struggling to get in. It isn't your fault.
My house lost Wi-Fi. My Wi-Fi got knocked out for a second, so it messed up my computer.
You know, it's a small miracle that that doesn't happen more often on my end, because that would mess everybody up. It did happen once or twice this semester, but so it goes. Anyway, I'm glad you made it. All right. Does anybody have any questions so far about this behavior? So I want to just throw in something though. So merge mode is what we call it, but it also does this weird unmerging business, which I call the cookie cutter. Because, you know, if you've ever seen someone make cookies, they take their little shape and they put it right over the dough. And now you got a heart-shaped cookie or whatever it is, right? So we could actually cut holes in this for windows or whatever. So I will tell you the best way to do it. I'd like you to get the rectangle tool. You're in the same mode. You could pick any color, right? Any fill color for this. Any fill color other than the color of the buildings. So I want to show you what I mean by that. I'm going to use this building here as my guinea pig. If I put a black shape here, I can put them anywhere I want, but I want to show you my main point. Afterwards, if I get the black arrow, click that shape and delete it, look what happened. It takes a hole out. That basically means that my background color is going to show through that window. That's pretty cool. So join me on that. Get the rectangle tool, pick a building, right? With your rectangle, choose any color other than the building you're interested in. It really doesn't matter as long as it's a different color. Draw the shape of the window you want, get that black arrow, click it, and delete it. I like mixing photographs and drawing. So I might actually put a picture of a real sky in the background, and I'd be seeing it through the windows of my drawn buildings. Is that feature working for you guys? It's behaving. So that's pretty cool. And the thing that's really weird about it is even the holes do this black arrow thing that I was showing you before. You know, I'm not sure that I'd want to do that on Windows necessarily, but I could. So sometimes I will. Like I got this dome here, and I really wouldn't mind seeing a dome-shaped window. So I could change that shape to work with it, then come in and click it and delete it. All right, I don't want to go too much further, but I want to mention one little thing that's kind of handy when you do this type of work. There's an eyedropper on the toolbar. It looks just like an eyedropper for like eye drops. Yeah. And it's a great way to borrow your own colors, right? So I want to show you what I'm going to do with that idea. I want to put crossbars over this window, you know, so it looks like 4 panes of glass. And to do that, I'm going to need this green. So I'm going to get my rectangle tool. Actually, forget that. I'm going to go get the eyedropper. This is what it looks like over here. And I'm going to click on the color that I need, because I could borrow any of these colors. Now my rectangle tool sees that color, so I could simply do this. I like it. So if you missed it, I'm going to mention it's a small feature, but it's kind of cool. Let's say you wanted to add to a different building. Go to the eyedropper, use it to pick the color, right? And then switch to the drawing tool you want. We're using the rectangle tool. And you can go ahead and add whatever it is you want to add. Quick word for those of you who draw. So like, I kind of love to draw. And, you know, I spent a lot of years learning how to draw. This was before all these programs came out, or early anyway. And then when I learned how to do this kind of stuff, one of my teachers like, oh man, you're going to rock. You're going to be amazing because all that drawing training you have. And it wound up being the opposite of the truth. Because I was so used to drawing traditionally, I couldn't think of drawing like this. I literally had to spend a period unlearning so I could relearn a new way of thinking. You know, and this is very much vector thinking based on anchor points, in particularly merge mode in our case. Are there any drawing questions for me right now? You could jump in anytime. All right, I want to get to some motion together. So, you know, one thing I'd like anyone who's interested in this program to get used to quickly is above the stage and to the right. So this is telling you your current zoom level. But my favorite feature over here are these 2 tiny arrows. So above the stage, a little bit to the right, these 2 tiny arrows, let me press on them to custom zoom. And that's going to be really important to us, right? Because we all have different size screens. So I can't tell you a number to punch in. But here's the rules. Never work without seeing the ceiling and the floor. Because you think you put a person somewhere in that stage and you're completely wrong if you can't see the ceiling and the floor, right? You need to see your borders, but also the left and right, because very often we'll have something move on stage. I want to go over something kind of quickly from last week so I could upgrade it. Last week, we took a ball, really a circle, right? And we did our best to make it look like it's been punctured, right? So the idea was what was a perfect circle started to flatten out. And at first we flattened it in one spot. And then after a while we started doing both sides. Something like that. I want to remind you of something, so give me a second. I want to whip something out that I happen to have available. So this is from last week. Look, and I'll confess, mine looks more like Jell-O than it looks like a ball. But I happen to really like the way it flattens out, so I'm going to actually go for that again. Right?
Maybe that was the point.
You know, I have to say, I come out of motion graphics, so my history's working with people's logos and working with lots of flying words, which we're going to do together, called kinetic type. And it's a good moneymaker, to be honest, especially for a web designer. Lots of advertising type looking stuff. But once I started getting more involved with characters and that kind of thing, timing and smoothness really became an issue for me. Timing and smoothness. And I think I was focused more on that last week. I'm going to do the same though today. So let's get let me get back into that file along with you guys. I also want to introduce a new topic. I think I touched on it last week. I would like to take it a little bit further. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, this is the timeline, and you guys have a little experience with timeline from both Audacity and Premiere. And this is a typical kind of animation timeline. And you'll notice that it's called layer 1, the current layer. Could you double click the current layer name and rename it? You could call it buildings or anything like that, background. So we renamed it. The number is utterly meaningless. It just came first. But we need another layer. So you've double clicked that layer name, you renamed it. Now above that, where the name is, you see a little plus sign. That's the new layer button. So when you're ready, please click that button. Before we go further at all, I want you to look at frame 1 of your new layer. And it's a hollow circle. That's the way we call it. And it's actually a keyframe. So if I wanted to be exact, I would say it's a hollow keyframe. The one beneath it is a black keyframe. And what's the difference? You could only draw in a keyframe, right? Let me get that out of the way. So you're always going to see those little circles. Now, when you make a layer, it assumes you might want to draw right away. So it gives you one keyframe automatically, and you're looking at it. As soon as you draw there, it turns black. So later on, you're looking at a complicated timeline. You could spot where and when all the drawings exist, just on the black dots. I want to do something, though, to protect the lower layer. We made the new layer, but the lower layer is easy to select by accident, just by clicking on it with the black arrow, and I switch layers. So I might start to draw and ruin it. I really want it to be up here. So what can you do? You could lock the lower layer. So this padlock here would lock all your layers. So I don't really want to use that. I'm going to click it again. I want to go to the lower layer and click right here. So that's the padlock. That layer can't be touched. Okay, before we start to draw though, just to get in a good habit, could you click the keyframe in the upper layer? So that hollow circle is the keyframe, and it's really holy ground for animators. All right. Make sure you can see your whole stage. So you might have to zoom back again. All right. I'm on the new keyframe of the upper layer. That's an important idea. And I'm going to get this tool called the oval tool. Most programs call it the ellipse tool. Small difference, unless you're used to other programs. Call it here the oval tool. I'd like you to pick a color for that oval that you're about to make. And remember, you could change the color if you don't like it. Now, I don't want this, and I don't want that. So if you want to be sure to make a perfect circle, hold down Shift and keep it down until you're done. Then let go of the mouse first, or the touchpad, or the stylus. The Shift key forced it to be a perfect circle, and that works in almost every program that has shape tools. I don't like where mine is, so I'm going to get the black arrow, click it, and move it. You could move yours or change its color. This would be the right time. By the way, if you don't like its size, the next tool on the toolbar, the next one down, is called Free Transform. I use this tool a lot, right? It has the strange shortcut of the letter Q. If you can't find it, just press Q, right? It also selects, which is kind of nice. So you could click on it if you like. You could make your shape bigger or smaller. Does other tricks that I may share with you later. All right. So if you'd look at your timeline next, you'll notice that new keyframe just turned black. That's going to get very handy when there's more stuff on the timeline. You know exactly where a drawing is, what layer, but also when in time it showed up. You know, when you watch a movie, someone could show up at any point during the movie. They're not all going to be there in frame 1. Okay, I want to show you something I think is kind of cool about a bunch of Adobe products. If you get your black arrow or the transform tool, either one, well, actually, we're going to need the black arrow, so please switch to the black arrow. If you click on any shape, oh, I locked that layer. Let me unlock it for a minute. I could zoom in with Command plus or Control plus. But the best way to do it is to select a shape first. So naturally, I want this one. So I'm going to click it first and then Command plus to zoom in on it. Gotta love that because you constantly need to zoom in on things to get at the details. All right. So last week, and I want to do this a little quickly because I know some of you are waiting for a new challenge. The idea was this. We took the original drawing and we copied it to the next keyframe and made a tiny change, copied it again, made a tiny change, copied it again and made a tiny change, right? I'm going to do virtually the same thing, but I'm going to say a little bit more about timing. So make sure you're on the first keyframe. You're not elsewhere, no random place, but on the first keyframe of your brand new layer. Make sure you're zoomed in enough to see it. Make sure you have the black arrow. All right. Now, some computers will let you simply tap the F6 key. Now, the top row of keys are F keys. Some of you are friends with the F keys, some are not. So just look at that top row. The only problem is the F keys are also used by the Mac operating system and Windows operating systems. So you might just, on my screen, it's going to change the brightness. So I have to hold down the FN key. The FN key is really called the function key, and every keyboard has it. Some of you are going to need it, and some are not. Really depends on your computer. I'm on a laptop, they usually need it. So I'm going to hold down the FN key. I'm going to look at the top row where all the F6 keys live. And I'm going to tap F6 once. So I just got myself a second keyframe, which is kind of cool. And I'm ready to draw on it. Look, folks, I just want to say, why function? Why do they call it the function key? All it means is function like the program, function like the app, don't function like the computer. So don't change brightness, don't change volume. Do what Animate told you. So I hold down function and I tap one of the keys. All right, we're going to use F6 a lot, so I'm hoping everybody gets the hang of it. If it doesn't behave, please stop me. Right? No one will mind you asking. Right? You just ask. All right. I want to change the shape of that one, but mine's selected. So if I try to change the shape of it, I'm going to move it. I better Command Z to put it back and click off of it. Please check that your lower layer is locked. It's going to make you happier. All right. All right. So if that shape is not selected, so this is what it looks like when it's selected. Got little dots on it. And this is what it looks like when it's not. So if yours is not selected, I want you to take the black arrow right over the edge and pull it in microscopically, barely, just a tiny amount. And then I want you to F6 again. And I'd like you to pull it in a little bit more, again, microscopically. Now, I want you to do it 5 or 6 times with very small changes. So you FN F6, you look at the timeline, so you see what you're doing. I'm on the 4th drawing already. And I just take that edge in. Then I'm going to do it again. If you accidentally click in the object, just click out. If you accidentally move the object, Command Z and click out. Now, what I want to start doing is having multiple changes at once. I got the viewers, one of the reasons I start small, and I talk to the animation students about this a lot, is I need to get somebody's attention. Otherwise, if I'm doing a bunch of things at once and the person is not even done texting, you know, reaching for the popcorn, I've already missed my opportunity. So I always start small, get to bigger events. Even though right now it's been a fraction of a second, I'm good. I want to start doing multiple changes. So F6 again, I already did it. I'd like you to go to the same spot and make a small change. But I'm thinking at this stage, the rest of the object would start to change too. So I'm going to go to the opposite side and bring it in also. That's 2 changes. I might even choose to start bringing the bottom down toward the floor. So I made 4 changes, but they were tiny. So I'm going to F6 again. And I'm going to go with that. Multiple changes. I'm going to want mine to fold over, kind of spill over to the ground. So on my next one, I am going to start focusing even more on one side by bringing it in and this over. It's going to start flopping over. All the while, the mass of this thing is heading toward the floor. And I'm going to F6, and I'm going to follow that same idea. Every time I F6, I make a few changes. I start to imagine how I'd like to see this thing behave. The number of changes is really up to you. What isn't up to you, for now anyway, is I'd like you to make them very, very small changes. And hopefully have a little bit more of a goal than last week when you were brand new to it. How long would it take to make this thing flatten out? Well, in my experience, at the kind of speeds I'm recommending, it'll take you between 20 and 30 frames, roughly, for this to flatten out. But I want to mention timing. It's a subject I barely touched last week, and it's kind of fun and cool. What if an object does not go at a constant speed? So say I have this thing and it's melting, 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 and then suddenly it speeds up. So maybe it could start slow and then speed up. When you get in a car, it's always that way, right? If you're in a race, it's always that way. Oh, I better go quickly. You can't start at 60 miles an hour. So how does an animator imitate acceleration, speeding up, acceleration? So the way you do it is you set a sort of speed like the way we've been going, very incremental, little changes, right? But then you start going slightly bigger each time. So my next change is going to be a little bit bigger than the ones I've been making. The one after is going to be even bigger than that one. So it takes some memory and some serious focus, right? So I'm going to start with that. Let me just check on how things are going. So I'm going to F6. And if last time I was moving about that far, this time I'm going to go twice as far. So I'm starting to go at bigger increments. An increment just means part. I was going very small partial changes. Now I'm going with bigger increments. Now you don't want to go big all at once because it won't feel like animation anymore. So this time I want to go even bigger than that. There's a much larger leap than I took last time. Oops. And it's hard to kind of track what you're doing. I'm going to go by a huge leap now. This thing's really going to feel like it's speeding up because its changes are happening much, much quicker. Now, one thing that's going to happen soon because of merge mode, and I really don't mind it, is when this thing touches the other side, it's going to become one blob, probably. And I'm going to kind of allow that to happen. I'm not there yet, but it looks like I'm about a step away. I just F6'd again. I'm going to pull it all the way over now. It didn't merge the way I wanted. I'm a little bummed about that. I'm going to see if I could. Oh, it did. There it goes. So they just merged. It merged with itself. You know, that's all right. I like it. So I'm going to make some more changes. And I'm going to keep going. And you could take this as far as you want. I'm going to use these ideas in a different way in a few minutes. And I'm around 20 frames right now. I want to take it a little bit further. Notice I keep on widening the bottom because this object has a certain mass to it. And if I keep making the top smaller, without changing the rest of it, it's going to feel like it's shrinking. You know, and most things in the real world don't just magically shrink. They change their shape on impact, losing air, but they don't just magically shrink, not typically. I want to see what I've got. Now, I want to mention testing this. One thing you could do, and you've seen me do it, but I just want to put it into words. Anytime you feel like it, you could grab the top of the playhead, drag it back to the beginning, and then drag it right to remind yourself what you're doing and how your separate drawings are looking. So this is, some people call this scrubbing. So you're scrubbing the playhead by dragging it. I'm pretty happy with it. The other way to test it is just to hit return or enter. How's it going today? Going all right? All right. Okay. Maybe I should check my chat. I know some people are much more comfortable with chat. It's not my best thing. Oh, there's lots of chats. Hey, sorry, chatters out there. It's just very hard to teach a class and also look at the chats. Give me a moment, guys, to catch up. Folks, I got to tell you something. My favorite thing about the chats is the way you guys support each other. That's just amazing. I remember when you were not allowed to pass notes in class. Now I encourage you, please pass notes in class. It's just great. You know, seriously, I sometimes can't stop. So I miss that someone's in need. I'm just checking around just to see. Okay. So, I'm kind of curious how this is going. Hey, Diamond, how's it treating you? Is the ball deflating? Excellent. Anybody else want to? You all look fairly content. I don't see any visible agony, except for some people hide their mouths behind their name. So it's like that. So I don't really know if they're unhappy. All right, so it goes. Understandable. I want to mention one more thing. So yeah, you could see how you did by dragging the playhead. You could hit return or enter. I do want to show you another way. But before I do that, I want to zoom back a little. I'm back up here on that zoom feature. I am kind of curious how the whole thing feels. All right, I want to quickly mention the SWIF file. We did this last week, so I'm going to keep it very short. You're working on a .fla right now. So even though you're in Adobe Animate, it is the child of Flash. By the way, the Flash was the child of something called Director. So this is likely to go on for a while. But Flash made the extension .fla, and we're still using it. So you're in an FLA right now. But one of its most popular output files was called the SWIF. It was .swf. Now you all know JPEG, but you also know PSD, right? So PSD is a Photoshop document, and we made a lot of JPEGs out of that. So Photoshop could make many kinds of files though. And so can Adobe Animate. We're going to use the SWIF just as a quick preview outside of the program. I would like to say something fast though. The SWIF caused a lot of trouble to the public. So it's not the big subject it once was. Programmers loved a SWIF file because they could program things, certain behaviors in code. And the SWIF was the best way to actually run that. But it's also one of the reasons why the SWIF caused so much trouble. It's not when it's your own SWIF though. It's when it's some evil person's SWIF. So it's safe for you to use it as a preview. Let's try that out. So back in Animate, if you're on a Mac, hold down Command and tap Return. If you're on Windows, hold down Control and tap Enter. And you're seeing the way it looks outside of the program. It's looping also, gives you a good chance to study it. By the way, this can change size because one great thing about animating in Adobe Animate is you could change the size as often as you want and it always looks clean. So Photoshop animation couldn't do this, and it's one of the things I hold against it. All right, when you've seen enough of it, close it.
I have a question.
Excellent.
When I save mine as a SWF file, like or do that command that you just said, it gives me an error, and
Really?
it shows me a blank white screen.
Wow, does it actually say an error?
Yeah, it says error opening URL, and then it gives a link to the file that this is in on my computer.
So I have a small hunch what may have caused that. I can't verify it though. So the SWF is run by something called Flash Player, right? And Flash Player used to have a lot of incarnations. One was it was installed anytime you installed Flash. And in my experience, it's the same thing with Adobe Animate. So I would have assumed Flash Player would have installed for you, but let me add something else. It also came in Chrome, came in Explorer, came in Firefox, came in every major browser. But now it doesn't because of the evil people who abused it. So I think there's some chance that your computer is blocking that SWF file, right? The good news, Alex, is it won't harm your work at all because the SWFs are not so important anymore. So what I would say to you, if you want to preview right inside the program, here's a little bit of advice. One thing you could do now and then, as long as you remember you did it, is click this tiny little button right next to the zoom features. So if you look at this building here, give me a moment. The building actually sticks off stage, and that sometimes confuses me. And I like previews because it hides the stuff off stage. But in Animate now, you could click this tiny button, and it also hides off stage. So that's kind of cool. Just remember to turn it back on when you need it. I'm going to zoom back out, and I want to say one more thing to you about it. The other cool thing you can do to avoid the need of a SWF at all is to turn looping on right here. Because I like to loop even if I'm not going to output a loop for my audience. I like it to loop for me because I study that way. I see what's good and what's bad. I watch it 200 times, you know. So if you'd like yours to loop, or anyone who'd like theirs to loop, notice the menus on the top of Animate, and there's one called Control. Control has a feature called Loop Playback. You click it. The next time you hit return or enter, it'll just keep going. So this is pretty much the same as the SWF. I don't really feel a big need for the SWF anymore. So again, the control menu, you can turn on loop playback, and it won't loop right away. So the next time you play it, it'll loop. Does that help, Alex? Yeah. All right. I want to try something a little bit more challenging. And even if what I've done so far has confused you, you know, whatever level, it has not been cooperative. Let's try something new together, right? I think I'm going to do it right on this very same document. So I'd like for you to check on a couple of things. I got to tell you something that I almost wish didn't happen. My computer did something brand new today that it's never done before. Now, I got to tell you something though. I use Animate at least half the week. I use Animate. So I'm a little surprised that this happened. I didn't load a new version today. So I got to check whether this happened for you. It's kind of cool, but take a look at something. On mine, the lower layer is the same length as the upper layer. Now, I didn't do that. The program did that by itself. So I need to verify something with you. Now, just give it a hard look because I'm gonna survey you guys for something. My layer on top here is about 22 frames long. I see these little numbers. I even can click in my last keyframe and check over here. It says 22 there. So that's frame 22. And the lower layer is the same length. Is your lower layer the same length as your upper layer? I read that Adobe was considering this behavior, but as of last Friday, it wasn't. So for years, what people had to do to make sure their city didn't disappear, I want to show you what I mean. So don't join me on this, just have a look. You'd often wind up with something like this. A lower layer that's short. So what's going to happen is, while that ball is deflating, the city's going to disappear. Because the city only lives, in my case, up to frame 10, and then it's blank. So the ball continues without the city. I'm a little surprised that your layers automatically became the same length. I want to be very frank. I've really been teaching this for, I don't know, 10, 15 years. First time I ever saw that is today. So I don't know if yours is behaving like mine, I suppose we're good. This must have come out in this newest version and I just did not notice, right? If anyone has disappearing elements, please let me know, right? And we'll figure out what's up. All right. I'd like for everybody to make a new layer. So you went back to this button, new layer. I want you to forget about the other two layers, all right? Just give them up. All right, join me on this next thing. Now, here's the thing. Some of you got a new layer on the top. Some of you got it in the middle like me. So I want to say two things about it. If your layer's in the middle like mine, I want you to do this. Press on that layer and pull it all the way up to the top. You could drag it to the top, to the bottom. We were able to do this in Photoshop also. I want the new layer on the top. For people who love details, when you ask for a new layer, it sees what layer you're on and it puts the new one right above it. So it really depended which layer you were on before you click the new layer button. Did you all drag it to the top? So before we go any further, I want to rename the two layers that don't have a name yet. The one with the ball, I'd like you to double click that. It's probably still called layer 2. It's got all the keyframes in it. Call it ball or whatever you'd like to call it. Amoeba, blob. Mine definitely looks more like a blob. But I want you to go to the new layer, right, which is probably called layer 3. And I want to tell you what we're going to do with this layer. I want to have something travel across the screen like this, all right? Look at me for a moment. So I want this thing to come off from stage left. By the way, I'm really not in theater. I think stage left is according to the actor, but that's really confusing. Let's just say our left. It's coming from our left, right? Peeking on the stage. It's going to speed up as it travels. If we've got enough nerve, it's going to react to that speed, you know, as it heads off the other side. All right, so this is what my goal is. I'm just going to call this mover. It's going to be the only thing that's actually traveling. So I'm going to the new layer. I'm going to double click that name and I'm going to call it mover. I would like for everybody to get comfortable as they can before I start this next thing. And what I mean by that is zoom if you need to. I want to make sure you could see all 4 sides of the stage. So I'm talking about these features here. This here will let you zoom quickly, but it's not always detailed. So I like the little arrows very often. Big arrows faster, but less specific. By the way, Alex, you especially, both of us, if we're in trim view, right, I want to see stuff that's off stage now, so I better turn it off, right? So that feature was here. Most of you didn't use it, but if you did, I want to release this button. Do you see how my building is still sticking out? We're going to need to be able to draw off stage. So I want to be able to see that. Okay. Before we start drawing in this program, once you have a lot of layers and once you have a lot of keyframes, you have to establish where you are before you draw. So we want a new object in frame 1 of the new layer. So let's go click on that. That's a keyframe. So you don't click up here. You choose the layer and you click in the right spot. So this is the brand new layer in frame 1. You make sure you could see the whole stage. And now I'd like you to join me in this small exercise. I want the rectangle tool. I'd like you to pick a color for it. So I'm going to do that from the bottom. Pick any color that's easy to see. And what I'd like is something in the air that's about this big and kind of sticking off the stage a bit. So I'm talking about this object that I just drew right over here. You know, I think I'm going to change my color to one that everybody could see really easily. So this black box, yours could be any color, by the way. So in frame 1 of the brand new layer, it's in the air. It's about this size. All right, I want you to loan me your imagination for a minute. If this was a car, right, and the idea was to zip across the screen, but it was first starting, right, it would have to start slow. You know, even if you got a Maserati or something, you know, a fancy car, you know, it's still going to start at 0 miles per hour. You know, maybe it speeds up fast, but it has to go through 0 miles per hour, 1 mile per hour, work its way up to full speed. So we're about to do that. Thing is, once it went fast, it would probably lean a little bit, right, as the pressure from the air is hitting it. You could even feel it on a train, right, if the train suddenly speeds up. All right, let's try it out. Does everybody have a new object on the new layer? All right, I'm going to try to keep my eye on the chats a little bit more often, so just give me a second here. Like I said, it's a little difficult for me. There was a video project that's due tonight. That's from class 19. It's the same steps as the earlier 2 video classes, but as special assets. One would have to look at the class 19 handout. All right, let me get back to this. All right, find that first keyframe. Notice if you click it in the timeline, it actually selects your object. Kind of interesting detail. All right, click the first keyframe so you know when you're working and where. And now we're going to F6 again. All right, so I click the first keyframe. If you need the FN key, you would know that by now. You might have to hold down your FN key, tap F6. Please don't hold down F6. If you get a lot of black dots, then you just held it down. And I'm very glad you were not holding a machine gun. Just tap it. So I hold down FN and I tap F6. The playhead's now over the second keyframe. Now I want to move this object a tiny little bit. And you might notice before you let go, you see a little ghost of where it was right behind it. So you drag that one over a tiny little bit. All right, I want you to F6 again. Let's keep it simple for the first few steps, about 5 or 6 like this. FN, tap F6. Oops, look what happened on my timeline. You all see it? I just got a bunch of keyframes. I better Command Z. What caused it? Somehow I accidentally highlighted that whole layer.
I think it's because it's all selected, right?
That's right. That's right. Which often happens by accident. That's why you have to keep on looking at your layer. I Command Z, so it wasn't a big deal. But what I'm going to do to make sure it doesn't happen again is I'm going to click just on that one keyframe. Because she's absolutely right. If this all turns blue, I'm in trouble. So I Command Z, click the last keyframe, and now I'm ready to move. Right? I am going to F6 again. And I'm going to move it just the same amount. And I see a ghost of the last version behind it. And I'm depending on you staring at that, what I'm calling a ghost, because you want to go at a constant speed at first. Person has not stepped on the gas yet, right? So we want to do this at least 6 times. So here's a 4th one, a little bit forward, about the same distance. Doing it again, a little bit forward at the same distance. And I keep looking at the timeline to make sure I don't accidentally highlight the wrong stuff. I'm gonna do it one more time. All right, that's easy. Moving at a robotic, constant speed. There's very little that I know of that can move like that. People don't move like that. dogs, cats, even elevators don't move like that. God knows the subway doesn't move like that, though it often feels like it, right? Things speed up and they slow down. So here's the trick, right? You already saw that on the ball, but this is moving. If the next step is just slightly bigger, that'll be the first step in accelerating. The step after has to be even bigger. And each step has to be even bigger than the last. That's the equivalent of increasing the pressure on the accelerator in a car, right? You just keep on slowly going faster and faster and faster. It's going to get across the stage very quickly this way. So I'm going to start right now. I just want to double check what I have. So that's the constant speed. I'm going to click that last keyframe if necessary and F6 again. So this one here, if I drag it to the right, that's the distance I've been traveling, but I'm going to go a little bit further. Then I'm going to F6. Last time I traveled about that far, right? So I keep looking at the ghost left behind so I can memorize it. And then I'm going to go a little further than that. Each time I try to imitate the last distance and then add to it. And I know that's not easy, right? I know that's not easy. I mean, one way to help with that, figuring out how far did I go, is with this feature called onion skinning. I don't usually teach onion skinning early in an animation class, but we only have a few. You know, we have a week or two. I think about 2 weeks of this, right? So I'm going to squeeze it in early. Onion skinning is a way to show all the prior ghosts, so to speak, right, at once. So you could judge with that knowledge. I want you to see what it looks like, and you could join me on this experiment. Let's see if it's helpful or not. On the bottom of the screen is a bunch of little buttons, right? And one of them are two ovals. And if you rest your mouse over it, it's going to say onion skin. So I'd like you to click it. Onion skinning does this ghostly looking thing that I was talking about. I'm going to zoom in a bit right now so people could see that better. And on the timeline, it shows you these brackets that can be moved. So if I look at the timeline, there's a blue bracket on the left that I could drag over so I could see more of the changes I made. This space here is bigger than the last, bigger than the last. It looks like I'm doing good. So what I'm going to do is click the keyframe. I got onion skinning on. That was down here, by the way. It's got a crazy shortcut, so I'm not even going to recommend it. I wonder if I could turn it on from the control menu. Nope.
Hello, Professor.
Yes.
How should I do if there is no and is the line we show on my
the little brackets? So Shuying, are you seeing the onion skin button? Is that showing up?
No.
Not at all.
No.
All right, give me a minute. Let me think that through for a second. First thing I want you to do with me is go to the window menu. And I want you to head down the window menu and tell me if you see workspaces. Do you?
Yes. Yes.
Is essentials checked?
No.
Could you check it?
Yes.
All right, now tell me if you see those buttons at the bottom.
Still can't see that button.
Still can't see.
Yeah, I see it. I see
You
that.
do? All right, great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for asking. I gotta tell you, I love questions. I didn't used to, but people stopped asking. So now it's like a big relief. Okay, so onion skinning you want to turn on just when you need it because it gets pretty confusing after a while. If you don't like it, you could even turn it off now. All right, so here's the last keyframe. I'm clicking it so you can see what I'm doing. Let me just move some stuff out of my way. And I'm going to F6. Hang on a second there. And I'm going to drag this one. And I'm moving it over a little bit more than the last. I'm not sure the onion skinning is helping me. So sometimes what I'll do, if, you know, and again, we could drop this if necessary. I'll move that left side bracket on the timeline. So it only shows me the last two keyframes. Now this is clear. So this is where I am now. This is where I was before. But here I could see the distance, and it looks like this is not far enough. So I better drag it over. Well, it's a little bit bigger than the last gap. And again, if you're good at memorizing, you could turn it off. try it without it. So I'm thinking I went about that far last time. I'm going to add some more. This is a huge leap. This thing's going to go very fast. And I want to keep doing that until I'm off stage on the other side. If you're getting the hang of it, you could just move forward. So I'm clicking on the last keyframe just to make sure I'm copying the right thing. I'm holding down FN on my laptop so I could tap F6. There's the new keyframe. And I could drag it over by eye. If I've got a good eye, this is about how far I went last time. I'm going to go a little further. Some of you might find onion skinning a little bit more helpful. But again, if you like onion skinning, it's really about this bracket. If it's too much information, it gets confusing. I might want to bring it over so it shows me the current keyframe and maybe 1 or 2 before it. I'm just doing a little experiment right here. I'm going to work without it. I think I'm better without it. I want you to keep F6ing, trying the same formula of trying to go a little bit further than the last step, whether you're doing it by memory or any other way. Right now, they're not even going to overlap. I'm almost off stage. Now, once you get to the stage, the step where most of your object is off stage, you're done. I like it with the tail sticking in, and I'm going to show you why in a moment. My last frame is mostly off stage. It's got its tail on the stage. My first frame did the opposite. It was just sticking its nose in. So at the beginning, it stuck its nose in. At the end of its little life, it just leaves its tail in. And I want to show you why I like that. You know, the one thing that I didn't expect that I don't like about the tail being on is, you see, it usually makes a very nice loop. The only thing I don't like is this little hesitation. Do you see that? I really wanted it to feel like it went off stage. This one feels like it keeps re-arriving, but the end doesn't feel like it's actually leaving. And that's because it ended 5 frames early. So it's just sitting there. I want to prove my point. Here's me scrubbing. Everything's happening. That object, though, that black box, is there all the way for another 5, 6 frames. I think I would have been better off if I just moved mine off. Give me a second. There's someone at the door, at the virtual door. Let me pause for a moment. Today's class started kind of quickly. I didn't do any long lecturing. I think we were in Animate probably by 10 after 1, right? So again, if anyone missed anything, because I see a number of you are coming and going, I'm assuming it's an internet connection problem today. Everyone's on the news to see if the country's in flames or not. Maybe slowing down your internet connection. That was supposed to be funny. I'm not sure if it was. But anyway, just remember, the video is going to be on later today. My videos for your Tuesday class always go up quicker than they do on Thursday because I don't have a class after this, right? So if anyone wants to review anything, it'll be on YouTube probably by 3 o'clock at the latest. All right. How's it going so far? Any satisfaction out of this? So this is what I'd like you to, yeah?
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So again, you have choices about previewing. You could rewind by hand by just grabbing this playhead and bring it back to frame 1 and hit return. If you want it to loop like mine, you would have had to come up here to the control menu and turn looping on. Because if it's off, I just turned it off, it'll play once, and some people prefer that. I want to re-mention something I pointed out to Alex for different motive. If the stuff sticking off the stage bothers you, remember, right next to the zoom button is this new button. This is not an old feature, it's a new feature. When you press it, it hides everything off stage. So you're a little clear what your audience is going to see. All right. Does anybody have any questions for me at this stage?
I will ask another question.
Please.
So say you want to change the color of your ball. Can you change it over the course of the whole animation without doing each one individually?
So we're coming in touch with, and you asked in the perfect time too, really, is one of the shortcomings of frame by frame animation. So each frame of that ball is a different drawing. So if I go back and start changing color, I have to change them all. It's yes, you can go one by one and change their color. And in our case, there's really not that many, so it wouldn't be brutal, but there could be hundreds. So the next thing I want to share with you introduces something called tweening. Now I want to answer Alex's question by showing something, right? And then I want to show you the next step, a little taste of where we're headed. So check this out. The ball has its own layer. So I'm going to click frame 1, which automatically selected it. If I look at the properties palette right now, here's the properties palette, this long one on your right. It has 4 tabs on the top. And since I selected it by clicking the keyframe, it says frame here. And this is all stuff I could do with frames. But if I click object, I see what I expected to see. I have to say though, no matter how you select it, you'd go back to frame 1. And if you don't see it here, you maybe be able to change it from the bottom here. Thing is, I'd want to go change the next one. So I bring the playhead over, click it again, and choose the same color. I already forgot what that color was, but you get my point. Guess you better remember the color. You can go one by one, select it, and you're free to change its color. So now I got a pretty weird looking animation because I didn't go through them all. Let me turn my looping back on. All right, you see it flashing all over the place. But that's how you do it. All right, I want to show everybody something new. And by the way, if this is going well for you, that's fantastic. You know, it's and if it's not, don't worry too much. When I get to the topic that's going to be the last homework, right? I'm going to give it a lot of attention, right? And I'm going to do my best to make sure everybody in the room has a confident start. We're not there yet. We're kind of warming up. Before I show you tweening, a huge subject in the modern animators world, I want to say just a couple quick things about animation that are a little off center. So just bear with me for a moment. You know, I don't watch that much animation, but I make a lot of it, which is a little weird, I'll admit. I tried to watch The Airbender the other day, and I was not too excited by it. You know, I don't know, some of you may know that show. I didn't, my resistance was, it was a familiar style that's overused. You know, and it's just too many movies out there look exactly the same, and it automatically rubs me wrong. But I'm still interested. And one of the things that interests me, and here's an odd moment from your teacher. How do we think in time? I mean, do we really think analog? I mean, you know, we talk about seconds, and if you're very sensitive or scientist, you might talk about milliseconds. And maybe you're a quantum scientist and you talk about nanoseconds. God, I don't know how small a nanosecond is. My clock doesn't do nanoseconds. But, and then there are philosophies of the smallest amount of time possible. I forget what it's called. That it's commonly believed by science that there actually is a smallest measurement. If that's true, time is digital. It's not analog. If that's true. But I've been interested in time behavior all along, and it's what drew me to animation. I want to show you something. I'm dropping my phone, and it took X amount of moments, right? That means if I dropped it from halfway, it might take half as long. If I dropped it a quarter way, quarter as long. Logic, just logic. But at what point can I not divide it anymore? Now, I know my hand's crude and my phone is big, but if I had a perfect tool, couldn't I keep dividing it by half? Forever? Infinitely? It was a Greek philosopher that brought this up. He was saying time's not possible because there's endless divisions between one moment and the next. That concept still blows my mind. I often turn to Einstein for things about time. I'm a big Einstein fan. He had a lot of fascinating things to say about it. So I'll tell you the truth, even if all this is an illusion, it's fun sometimes. So I like to understand even how the illusion works, right? It's either physical fact or shared illusion. Pretty much the same to us when you go dancing or make a movie. I want to show you a really odd spin on this together. All right. First, let's save this in case you want to look at it later. File menu, save. Plain old save. Give it a name, right? I'm just going to call mine Animation2. You know, I think I'll use today's date. It's the 10th, right? So I'm going to call it Animation 11-10-20. You call it whatever works for you. It's going to be .fla on my Mac and on Windows 2. I don't even have to type it. I can if I want to. Please choose where you're going to put it. I didn't give you any assets today, so you got to choose where you want to put it. I'm putting mine on the desktop for now. And just click save. Quick word. That means tomorrow or the next day, you could continue this if you want, right? You'll just double click it. It'll open up in Animate and you can just get busy. Can everybody open a new document with me? File menu, new. We have just enough time to taste the next subject. All right, so I'm going to go with the same size, 640 by 480, frame rate of 24. Let's click create. This is a fresh start, everybody. All right, so if anyone lost, you know, their momentum, here we are, starting to edit something fresh. I need for you to follow me exactly, though, because it's kind of weird. All right, here we go. I'd like you to get the rectangle tool, and I want you to change its fill color to any color you feel like using. I'm going to turn my stroke off. You might want to do the same. Mine's already off, but you could click the stroke chip. And if you don't want a color, you don't want any stroke, remember, don't forget about this little slash here, all the way in the top right corner of your swatches. So it looks like that. I need a rectangle about this big, exactly here. Kind of center on the left wall. What we're going to do is have it move across stage, change color, and become a circle in very few steps. This is all going to happen on one layer, and it's called a shape tween. Now, the first thing I have to ask myself is how long should it take? 24 frames is a whole second, so it's going to go 1 Mississippi. That's about a second. I think I want it to take longer than that. So I want to show you what we're going to do. Let's go out to 2 seconds. Now, you might notice on the timeline that there's second marks above the frame numbers. 2 seconds is right above 48. Could you click in 48? And we have to do something new. We have to make a blank keyframe. Let's stop for a minute. Remember those hollow circles you saw every time you made a layer? You can only draw on those. But if you need to draw later in the movie, you have to make your own keyframe. So we're going to use something called insert blank keyframe. So you left your drawing behind, you're going out to frame 48, you're clicking right in here, it turns blue. Then you either right click, if you have that kind of mouse, or you hold down Control and click. You're looking for this. Guys, please be careful. Don't choose anything nearby. They're not the same. You need insert blank keyframe. Please click it. Now, what happened is you're seeing a hollow circle there, a long gray bar, and you no longer see the rectangle. So I want to show you something. The rectangle lives in frame 1. The playhead would move along, it would sit there until it got to the blank keyframe. Boop, it disappears. In that frame, we're going to draw the new element. So if you're feeling at all confused, just click that last keyframe. Make sure you're going to draw in the right place. And I want you to find the oval tool. I'd like you to pick a different color for the oval tool, any color that you haven't used. And I'd like an oval, something like this, against the right wall. So in frame 1, I have a rectangle, sits there for nearly 2 seconds, and at the last moment, there's a blue circle there. Now this is not much of an animation, but it would play like this. It almost looks like it moves at the last second. That's not what we want, but we're close. Folks, I do want to say very clearly, I'm going to repeat this Thursday so that we can move ahead. Right? This is late in the class just to introduce a new idea. All right. To see the cool part though, you want to click in the layer anywhere between the two keyframes. So don't click down here, don't click up here, click in that gray bar, anywhere between the two keyframes. Doesn't matter where, but it has to be between them. Once you're there, right click or control click to get a menu. So make sure you've clicked in the right area so it knows that you're talking about this area in between your keyframes. And on the top, you'll see 3 choices. There are 3 flavors of tween in this program. The only one that's going to work now, and the one we really want, is shape tween. So click create shape tween. Now, a few interesting things should have happened. The playhead is in the middle on mine, so it's showing me what the middle looks like. Also, the layer's got a long orange stripe, and that means shape tween. So it's easy to tell later on what areas have been shape tweened. You also might notice it's got a long arrow in it, saying tween from this keyframe all the way to the other one. So if you bring your playhead back to the beginning, hit return, this is what you should see. Did it work? So we're going to redo this Thursday. If it didn't work for anybody, especially guys without cameras. Yes, Kalik, you have a question for me? Your box lit up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that it worked.
Thank you. I love hearing from you guys without cameras. It really helps me know how you're doing. Thank you, Kalik. I want to show you 1 or 2 really fast things just because this is called a live tween. This is crazy. Watch this. Could you go back to frame 1? I'd like you to change the color of that rectangle. So just click on it if necessary, choose a different fill. Then play it. It updated. I'd like you to go back to that keyframe and move the object. I'm going to start down here. I changed its color and I moved it. And it still works. You could do that on either end. I want to wrap up today by quickly saying this. 1, if you have to leave in 2 minutes, I say this every class, right? You're done, and I took attendance. You're okay. You have something to do, I understand. If you could stick around, I am going to talk for a few minutes beyond the class. So what's going on, and an individual wanted to talk to me too. But right now, I just want to say, tweening makes modern animation possible. You know, to pull this off, and it just took us 2 seconds, that's 48 frames, would have been a lot of drawing. And not easy drawing. But tweening made it really fast. I could change the speed, the timing, and all kinds of details about it. I could even change the shapes. Watch this. I'm going to go back to frame 1 because the rectangle is easier to change. Oops. I better deselect it. Try that again. Watch what happens now. I use shape tweening mostly to make a point that you can have key moments that are far apart and let the computer figure out the middle. Thing is, shape tweening isn't as magical as it looks. I was a werewolf this Halloween, but I couldn't tween myself into a werewolf, right? Too complicated. You know, even if I had 2 drawings. For that kind of thing, I'm still back to doing all the drawing myself. But for simple shapes, shape tweening opens up lots of doors. This semester, I'm going to show you at least 1 other kind of tween, maybe 2. while we figure out what's best for our final assignment. But this was the beginning. Does anybody have any questions for me about the shape tween? No?
None so far.
None so far. So we're going to move this a little forward on Thursday, and we're going to expand from there. We started animation last Thursday. This is the second day. Really, off the top of my head, I don't remember precisely how many I've allotted, at least 5. And we're going to return to it at the very end of the semester. We're not far as it is right now. So those of you who are enjoying it will have more to enjoy. Any last questions before you go? Anybody?
Nope.
Nope. Emily wanted to talk to me after class, so I'm going to say goodbye. Emily, am I right? You still want to talk to me?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So I'm going to say goodbye to everybody else, if that's all right.
Bye.
All right. See you all. It
Bye.
was
Thank
fun.
you.
You're welcome. Check Blackboard. And I'll be checking my email.
All right, then take care.
You too. You too. Thank you. Thank you.
Quick question.
Yeah, sure, Diamond.
Did you say something was due today?
The video. So, Diamond, I wanted to ask you something, and I'm sorry I don't read the chats more often. I could see they're better for you, which is understandable. Really is. Just harder for me.
Hey, Professor, 1 second. Do you know how backgrounds work, or any? Can I get any suggestions on backgrounds?
Jason, you're gonna have to wait because Diamond already asked me a question, so let me finish.
I thought it was finished already. My bad. I wasn't listening.
No. So, Diamond, were you here for any of the video sessions that we did on Adobe Premiere? So you were here for the first 2, but not the last one, right? How did it go for you on the first 2?
It was pretty easy because I already do. I want to be an editor, so I already know about.
Oh, so this is the perfect assignment for you then.
It was.
All right. So the new homework, which is due today, I'm officially giving you an extension. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So get it to me. Hopefully Thursday, but even by next Tuesday would be fine.
Okay.
So this is what class is? I think that was 19. The homework. Just give me a second.
Right now we're in 21.
We are. So I'm pretty sure that homework was assigned class 19. Yeah, the last one with assets. So you'll download the assets. They're all little clips from the Apollo mission, the first time that anyone's got to the moon. So it's real footage. It's very small. They're numbered for people who need the help. So they a logical order. Now you want to be a video editor. So I'd rather you watch all the clips and do it in your own way.
Okay.
So essentially you want to make a movie for me. A minute would be perfect, or less is fine. Please don't go over 2 minutes. The ideal would be to give me a title, use the sound or sound of your own, and see what you could do with it.
Okay.
By the way, a couple people added footage that they found on the internet. Some people added music. They just felt like doing it. Some people added more text. You're welcome to do any of those things. All right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, guys, I apologize, but I'm gonna kick you both out.
Oh, damn.
Sorry, Jason. I know we usually hang out, but not. I'll see you next Thursday.
All right, see you next week then.
See you then.
I mean, Thursday.
Thursday. Yes.
Yeah.
See
All
you
right, see you then.
See you then. Bye-bye, sir. How you doing, Emily?
I'm good, just a little bit concerned.
Hey, Emily, do you have a camera?
I do.
Right? I mean,
Yeah, I don't know. Hey, let me see if it works.
Oh, I remember. You know, I have to tell you something. I'm so bad with names and faces but if I see a name and a face, it's easier for me to connect who I'm talking to. You don't have to keep it on if it's uncomfortable. I see that it's frozen.
Yeah, it's my internet, so that's
Turn it
why.
off. That's fine. So tell me about your concern.
Yeah, I think I emailed you like an update of my new upcoming computer. I told you it's been delayed.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I think, I'm not really sure, this Thursday I have an appointment with Best Buy, so I'm pretty sure they're gonna give my computer already by that time, but that's gonna be at 12.
Okay, so from the school
Yeah.
we're talking about.
Excuse me?
You're getting the computer from the school?
No, I'm getting my computer from Best Buy, like the one that I bought.
Best Buy.
Yeah,
Oh, that one.
yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Oh, how exciting.
Yeah, so I'm sorry if I'm late at that time.
You know, let me late that day you're saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Give me 1 second. I want to check something kind of fast for you. Oh my God, you're doing really well in this class. You've got a weighted average of 97, which means the way it's going, you're gonna get an A from the looks of it. So yeah, you only need one homework.
Yeah, just
Oh my God,
homework.
what are they doing? Tell them to say, leave me alone, please.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to tell you. So I'm really sorry if my homework is delayed, so delayed. I'm really
Emily,
sorry
you've
about that.
so earned. You really earned a little extension. You know,
Thank
you're
you.
doing great in the class. So yeah, don't you worry about it. I'll take it late. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And listen, I hope you love your new computer. But you know, your internet might still be slow though.
Yeah, I do have a hotspot from the school, but I don't know if works perfectly, you know.
Can I ask you something? Like, so I work outside and I use my phone as a hotspot.
Mm-hmm.
When the school gives you a hotspot, is it a device?
Yeah, it is a device.
Oh, I see. How interesting. Yeah, I was never sure how that works. Well, listen, you seem to be making it all work. And remember, it's all on video, right? It's all on the YouTube link. So,
Yeah.
you know, if you need to review anything, it's all on our playlist.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, you got it.
Another question. Will you do classes, animation classes on the spring semester?
I will. Yeah, Friday. You know, they haven't asked me officially, but they always do. So I can't guarantee it, but it sure sounds like I'm going to do it Friday at 9 in the morning. The class is
Oh,
called,
okay.
my class is called MMP260,
Yeah.
260, and it's Intro to 2D Animation. So it's going to be more of this. Are you an animation major?
Yeah, I am.
I would love to have you in that class.
Me too. I was looking for you on the classes that shows up, but I didn't see your name, so that's why I'm asking you.
I don't think they assigned us. Did your other classes have names on it?
I have for another professor that I know of, but yeah, that's why I'm asking you because I didn't see your name. I
I'm
don't
glad you
know.
mentioned it. I want to reach
Yeah.
out to my bosses. Tell them to put my name there.
Yeah, because I really enjoy your classes. I really do.
Thank you. I'm glad you feel that way. And just so you know, the animation class is very similar. It still uses IraWorks. There's still handouts that link to everything. There's assets for that class. The main difference is it's a lot harder.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, so
I know.
I'm glad you're going to have a new computer and you know, whatever tools you can, because this class there's let's see, there's 4 homeworks total. That class there's 10.
Oh wow.
And I might have to back off because it's a little too hard. You know, the class strangely seems to be a lot of A's and a lot of F's.
Oh
Not a lot of middle grades. You know, it's like 1/3
yeah,
of the class really can't handle it.
yeah.
So
I do 3D animation, but with
oh,
the
you
free
do?
software. Yeah, and it's really time consuming, and sometimes I get really irritated because it doesn't come out like I want to. So
Sorry about that, YouTube. Got involved with the conversation. Anyway, see you next Thursday also. Bye now.